We're really happy to have as our guest on Back Nine Report, Chris Perry. Chris had a tremendous career at Ohio State University. He's all over the record book there. And he spent time, about 20 years, on the PGA Tour, had a win there, a lot of top tens. I think 1998, you were second only to Tiger with top tens and things like that. So, Chris, you had a great golf career. Now you're living in Columbus. Welcome to Back Nine Report.
Yeah, thank you, Fred. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
You know, Chris, you grew up in Minnesota. How did you end up at Ohio State to play golf?
Yeah, well, being that Dad played for the Minnesota Twins for over 10 years, that was kind of our home, and that's obviously where I grew up. And then I played both. Well, I was a hockey player. I played baseball and I played golf. But in Minnesota, golf is in the spring, so I had to choose by the time I got to high school or ninth grade, one or the other. I couldn't play both because of the time. So I chose to walk away from baseball and focus on my golf career at the time, and became, pretty good junior player, played in a lot of national tournaments, and that got me recognition. And I was recruited by a lot of really good schools, Houston and Florida, Centenary. I mean, a lot of really big programs. Oral Roberts at the time was really good. And being from the North, I thought if I went to Florida or somewhere, I would have had a little bit of case of burnout, since I played, hockey in the wintertime. Even though I knew I wanted to probably play professionally, I looked really for the best program that was kind of played in mostly in the North, which would be, and Ohio State had a great program. They had won the NCAA in 1979. They had John Cook, Joey Sindelar, Brian Mogg. They had a lot of really good and a great program. And the fact that Columbus was a pretty big town, and we had priority. We have our own golf course at Ohio State University, 2 courses, and that's really what I wanted. Is we came first, if you will, as far as practice time, and
Access.
that where a lot of some other programs have to get permission from, well, some are public courses, but some are private as well. And I just wanted to go to a bigger city rather than just a smaller town school.
Well, it obviously worked out pretty well for you. As I mentioned, as I was going through the record book, 3-time All-American, won the Big Ten championship, had 13 collegiate wins, 33 top 3 finishes in 54 events. But wait,
Yeah.
there's more.
Oh, really?
You ranked second all time at OSU with 24 collegiate rounds in the 60s. But you
Yeah.
were first among all Buckeyes with 71 rounds of par or better during his college career. And there was guys like Jack Nicklaus and Tom Weiskopf and Joey
Yeah.
Sindelar and John Cook and on and on and on that played golf at Ohio State, and you're right there ahead of all those guys.
Yeah, like I said, I had a really good career. I was very fortunate. I was very driven. The amount of time and effort put in, I had a lot of confidence. I think confidence can take you a long way. I, really prepared, both physically and mentally, to be able to be the best player that I could be. And, I made as a freshman, I made the starting, well, 6 at that time. So I believe I was probably number 3 man or 4 man, while I didn't play with John Cook. He had left early, but Joey Sindelar, Rocky Miller, there were a lot of Brian Mogg. There were a lot of really good players, and we just had a really, really good career. In fact, some of the time we come into towns and we check into a hotel, and these people would be like looking at us like, "What basketball team is that?" Because we were all really over 6 foot to 6'5". We had a kid from Canada, my roommate Danny Maui played. He was like 6'5" and a half. I mean, we were really tall, and not that we were big hitters, because the equipment is much different now, but just had a lot of confidence. And I think my first tournament, I want to say, was at Eastern Kentucky, and I think I finished second or third in my very first event. And then we went to Stanford and played an event, and I finished second there as a freshman. And I just kind of steamrolled from there. I just really had a lot of top tens, as you said, 13 or 14 wins. Our team won the Big Ten a few times in a lot of tournaments. But nationally, the best we finished in the NCAA was 4th. But they've changed the rules and everything now over the last 15 years. It's totally different. I mean, if you won the Big Ten, you were in the NCAA. Well, now that's not the case. I think it's almost like you could win 10 tournaments in your season and you might not even get to the finals, or it's just kind of strange how they do things now.
Yeah, you got to qualify through the regionals to make it to
Right.
the finals. Yeah.
Right.
From your time at Ohio State, Chris, what are you most proud of?
Well, obviously my record and my career. And in fact, I got, graduated. Obviously, the best thing that came out of it is meeting Kathy, my wife. We got married in 1985, and three beautiful kids. And in fact, we were talking earlier that they've all graduated from college, and now my son just graduated from medical school. Emily graduated. Well, he was at Ohio State. Emily was at Ohio State. She's now has a job at Nationwide Children's Hospital, and my youngest, Natalie, just graduated from the nursing program at the University of Kentucky. And this just happened in the last couple of weeks. So
They're following
very proud of them, and
following in Grandpa's footsteps there.
that's right. They got all on the medical side, where my family was more sports oriented as well. But so we're very, very proud of them. And when I got hurt in 03, 04, a lot of, obviously the time was really focusing on a lot of their stuff. We never missed any of their activities and everything. So I would have liked to have played a few more years, but being a father and a parent and husband and all that was kind of the role that I took on. I still play golf all the time. I would play more if I had the access, but I just don't have I would have to go qualify for the Champions Tour. And I just kind of somewhat lost a little bit of interest. Being hurt and not playing as well, I know what it takes, but I still have a little guy on my shoulder telling me, hey, you need to get out there, because I've played well, and I still play well enough to probably compete if I really dedicated myself. In fact, about 6 weeks ago, I played with Woody Austin, who's not really a close friend of mine. He happened to be in Pinehurst at the time, and took him out, and we were reminiscing about old stuff. And I really congratulated him on not only his career, but the Champions Tour career. Because you need to get out there and play. As good as you putt and straight as you hit it, you should be out there with us. So we'll see. I turned 60 though in September, so the time clock is
the window of opportunity. Yeah,
but
if your name's not Bernhard Longer, it kind of
yeah. Well, he's 63, so I figure if I really get after it for about 6 months and get myself really, really good shape, because I still hit the shots, I can still putt. It's really the mental side of it that you kind of somewhat lose in the focus ability when you just go out and are playing for fun. I mean, I still try to shoot a score and everything when I play. I take my golf serious and my practicing serious, and I really want to play well. And I just don't want to be. I would be great to be able to go out and play, but I think the time clock is, as I said, is ticking rather fast.
Chris, you mentioned, the PGA Tour. You did join the PGA Tour. You had one win out there. You had one Nike Tour win. I think in 1998 was your best year. You were second only to some guy named Tiger Woods in top tens that year. Finished well high up on the money list. Then you had the injuries after early 2000s that kind of failed your career there. But you were very competitive for a long time on PGA Tour.
Yeah. Well, when I won, I trained pretty well, but I really wanted to make a push. 97, I said I can play better than this. I won in 98, and that was later in the fall. So I wanted to really prepare for the 99 season. So I played much more in the wintertime, playing in tournaments, traveling overseas. I really wanted to make a nice start to the year in 99. I didn't play that well at Kapalua. I finished maybe 25th out of 45 guys. But I finished second at the Sony Open to Jeff Sluman, and I just snowballed from there. I think it was 14 top tens, which, as you mentioned, was Tiger, and I want to say it was Jim Furyk as well, was the other, who we all had the same number of. I had a really good career. I made, I think it was 30 cuts out of 31 tournaments. Only missed one. Very consistent. The top fives some guys were calling me the ATM machine and all this kind of stuff. So, but then, having those finishes of, just a few more shots, I could have had, the second or third win, and it just never came. Well, why didn't you win more? Well, somebody just played better. I mean, there were times where I shoot 69 in the final round and somebody just played better than I did. So,
But
but
you make a good
99 was great. And then 2000. So I played in my career, I played a total of 27 major championships. The best I ever did was, I think, 10th at the PGA in Medina that Tiger had won. I played in the Masters one time as a amateur, three times as a pro. So that would have been, let's see, 98, 99, 2000, 2001, maybe four times. I won the par 3 in 2000, and I finished 14th in the Masters that same year. He said, "Do you got the curse?" I go, "Curse? Well, I got the crystal." I said, "But what you guys don't know is that someone who's won the Masters par 3 has come back in a different season and won the tournament." I go, "Well, so I got that going for me." Yeah, but I play with a lot of greats. I mean, the amount of people that I play with, not only professional golfers, but actors or very well-known people. I come to mind. I played with Walter Payton. That was a big treat. Just a lot of the people that you meet, obviously. Playing with Arnold Palmer. A quick story about Arnold Palmer is, being that my dad was with the Twins, they trained in Orlando. So when I was a kid, I had met him, and so I knew him, but I never really played with him. So when I was in Ohio State, I qualified up in Akron for the 1982 US Open. I was only a sophomore at Ohio State, and I qualified, and it was at Pebble Beach. That's 82 is when Watson chipped in to beat Nicklaus on 17 and then birdied the last hole to win. So I didn't know anything. We got out there and had to play a practice round, and you had to sign up for tee times. And I mean, we're amateur. We didn't know any of this kind of stuff. So at registration, I put my name down, and then they were all booked. And they said, "Well, if you're a single, just go up to the starter and he'll get you out." So long story short, this was on Tuesday or Wednesday. And I go up to the starter, and he says, "Well, just come back in about a half hour. There's some threesomes that will get you out." So I did that. I went and putted, and I come up, I'm sitting on the first tee at Pebble Beach, and there's just this massive amount of people coming around the pro shop, all around the green. I'm going, "What is this?" It was just like cattle coming in, to eat. I was just this herd of people. I'm like, "What is going on?" And all of a sudden they started chanting, "Arnie, Arnie." So he walks up onto the tee, and he knows everyone by name, and the starter says, "Mr. Palmer, how many do you have today?" He says, "Well, we have 3." And he said, "Well, would you mind taking this young lad, Mr. Perry, with you?" And he goes, "Sure." And he put his arm around me, and I'm going, "Oh my gosh, I'm playing my first US Open. I'm playing a practice round with Arnold Palmer." And if you've ever been to Pebble Beach, it kind of goes up the hill, and it's kind of an iron or a 3-wood. And I go, "Oh, just let me get something bunted down the fairway." So I took my old trusty two iron off the tee, and I hit it straight. I probably could hit it maybe about 220 back then. Well, it went about 180. It looked better than what it was. It went straight, but my divot was about the size of a 6-pound sea bass or a bass just going up the fairway. But I played pretty well, and that was a treat. But one of the people asked me, "What was one of the, some of the greatest shots you've ever hit?" Well, in that, either the day before or the next day, I'm playing with Brad Faxon, was in school, Andy Dillard, and Willie Wood, and myself were the only 4 college players who played. So we're on the 18th hole, and the practice rounds take 6 hours. Well, Willie turns around and hits over the fence towards 7 out in the cove. There's a sailboat out there, not a whole bunch of them, about a 35-foot sailboat. I go, "You can't hit that boat. What are you talking about? It looks like 300 yards away." So he hits it. That's left. I took my old Palmer Peerless wooden 3-wood, first shot from about 240, winds right to left, little draw, bam, drill this boat, this sailboat. And about 10 seconds later, this guy comes up out of the galley, and we're over on 18 waving at him. I go, "It's one of the best shots I ever hit in my career." Love it. So anyway.
So, you brought up a really good point in your time in college and in the pros. You're always very consistent.
Yep.
Is that something you kind of strive for, to really work at?
Yeah, the consistency was, the swing was very consistent, mental approach to the game, but I always was really good course management of, like, getting in, if you get in trouble, get out, never hit two bad shots in a row. You hit in the rough, you get it back in play. And I always had great imagination and a really good short game. And I was always a good putter. Very rarely did I not, it's not like I made everything, but I had a lot of confidence in my short game ability. You hit 9 greens and you still shoot 1 under, that type of thing. So one of my caddies used to call me the gunk master because I love to hit. He goes, "You just love that long grass around the greens." So yeah, I had great ability to get the ball up and down, and I kept the ball in play. I wasn't long, but I was above average, let's say, back then. You mentioned, I finished fifth on the money list that year. And between fairways hit and greens in regulation, I think I was like seventh on the tour. So not having to scramble a whole lot is why I had a really good year. I mean, I finished fifth. I think back then it was I think it was 2.2 million. Now I'd be about $9 million or
Yep.
more than that, the way the money is now. So, but very consistent, worked hard at it, and just was, very fortunate. And like I said, very driven to do well.
Growing up in a home with a Cy Young Award winner as a father and an uncle who ended up in the Baseball Hall of Fame, you
Right.
had a unique view of professional athletes and
Yep.
professional sports, the business side of it as well as performing. Did that help shape you and make you a better golfer, you think?
Yeah. So my dad's career, we were fortunate in Cleveland and Minnesota. I was a little young, but so his career was over in let's see, what year was that? I would have been 15 years old, but I got to go into the locker room a lot. I mean, I had my own uniform. I shagged balls. I pitched batting practice. I mean, there were, so I also would go in after a game. I saw the silence in the locker room after a loss or the joy of winning a game. So I got accustomed to a lot of the, not only not only in spring training, the work ethic and stuff. I remember Rod Carew, the great hitter for the Twins. I mean, he was, batting close to 400 all the time. And I was watching and I said, Rod, what are you doing? He goes, well, I've never been a pull hitter. I was always up the middle or, a lot of singles and doubles or whatever. I want to be able to pull the ball so they can't, defend me a certain way. And I just thought that was really unique, that he was able to work on what his weaknesses were. So I saw that at a really young age. And I was around a lot of greats. My dad played on some really good teams, but I remember I was in Minnesota. I was at one of the public courses, and a friend of mine came and joined me. He says, "Hey, I just heard on the radio your dad got traded to the Oakland A's." So this was 1975, and so I came home and I said, "Dad," I go, "Well, I'm 14, 15 years old." I go, "Is that true?" And he goes, "Yep, finally going to a winner." So now, if you baseball knowledge, the Oakland A's won in 72, 73, and 74. That's Sal Bando, Campaneris, Vita Blue, Reggie Jackson. The list goes on. So, and we would go in the summertime after school, wherever dad would play, whether that's Cleveland, Detroit, or wherever. So I went out there and my locker was between Vita Blue, or my dad's locker, excuse me, was between Vita Blue and Reggie Jackson. Well, Reggie Jackson, back then, there weren't a lot of guys who had all these contracts, with Rawlings or Puma or whatever. And he'd be, giving me a t-shirt here, a pair of shoes here and all this stuff.
Big time
So,
stuff.
but that year, that was kind of a critical year because I was 14, 15 and I went to the park all summer with my dad. I only played golf like 3 times in 4 months or something like that as a 14, 15, didn't play any tournaments or whatever. And then pretty much Joe Rudy broke his hand and ran into the fence and they needed another batter. And then they released my dad. And that was pretty much the end of his career. He was, I think, 39, if I'm not mistaken, 215 wins. But it was great. We had some fun times with him. And then when my dad was in Cleveland in 72, 73 season, Gaylord was on the team. So they were teammates and they had 4 kids. And we basically lived out of the, Holiday Inn in Strongsville there for 2 months is where our home was. So a lot of met a lot of great people. And like I said before, very fortunate to see a lot of stuff as a young kid that, helped me in my career.
We've been talking to former OSU great and longtime PGA Tour member and champion, Chris Perry. Chris, so thanks so much for coming on Back Nine Report.
Oh, thank you, Fred. Enjoyed it. All the best.